We have breaking news out of Ontario this morning, where the province's already tariff-battered automotive industry has been dealt another devastating blow. General Motors announcing this morning it's cutting a full shift at its Oshawa plant. It's not immediately clear exactly how many jobs are impacted, but it is expected to impact about 1,000 workers at the plant and about 2,000 suppliers. The head of the association that represents auto parts makers says the decision will have far-reaching impacts.
What we've been saying to Donald Trump and his administration, and anybody else who can listen, is when you hurt GM in Oshawa, you're hurting Detroit. And Detroit is asking you to lay off. So nobody understands what the point is here.
And for more on this, we're joined by CTV's Kamil Karamali. Kamil, good morning. What are we learning?
Yeah, so the situation developing quite fast as we're getting reaction this morning, Renee. But what we know so far is that the third shift at the Oshawa Assembly Plant will be affected. Now, we know that there are 3,000 workers there. We're hearing from Unifor, or the local 222 president, Jeff Gray, not too long ago. He said that out of the 3,000 jobs at that plant, 700 direct employees affected on the third shift at General Motors Oshawa. So now we're getting a little bit more of a firmer number on how many of those 3,000 employees that work there will be affected. Also noting that 1,500 supply chain jobs will also be indirectly impacted. Let's not forget, Renee, that there are many local manufacturers in Ontario, in Canada, that make the parts that actually head over to the Oshawa Assembly Plant that go onto these cars and vehicles. So it's not just this Oshawa Assembly Plant that will be affected. Unions as well as politicians are saying this will have a ripple effect to the car parts manufacturing industry and the entire supply chain overall as well. Let's take a look at what GM has said this morning. So GM's Oshawa Assembly will return to a two-shift operation in light of forecasted demand and the evolving trade environment, obviously referring to the U.S. tariffs that were slapped on, the 25% tariff on all vehicles imports to the U.S. that were tacked on last month. It goes on to say GM Canada's record sales have enabled us to invest $2.6 billion locally since 2020 in new programs, including upgrades at Oshawa or next generation gas-powered trucks. It also goes on to say, Renee, that it's reorienting the Oshawa plant to build more trucks for Canada and Canadian customers. But Renee, obviously, the market much larger, much more robust in the United States. So trying to build trucks for Canada and Canadians, a much smaller market, obviously.
Yes. What kind of reaction is coming into this, Kamil? Yeah,
pouring in from union leaders as well as politicians. So Unifor's president with some very strong words this morning, claiming that this is a way for GM to barter Canadian jobs to gain favor with U.S. President Donald Trump, saying that this will also, as I mentioned earlier, have a ripple effect in the entire supply chain of car manufacturing parts as well. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mark Carney, we know, is set to meet with Donald Trump to renegotiate some of these the economic deal itself and the nuances around that. So the union is also saying GM jumped the gun by cutting shifts before this meeting between Carney and Trump even took place. We're also hearing from Ford. Let's pull up his statement. So he had a three-part statement, but we're just going to show you the first part because it's pretty long here. He says Ontario's premier says today's news from GM is extremely tough for the workers in Oshawa and their families. These are hardworking people who have helped build Ontario's auto industry. GM has reaffirmed, though, its commitment to the Oshawa plant, which will continue building Ontario-made trucks for years to come. We will continue doing everything we can to support a strong future for the facility and its workers. Renee, he goes on to say that we are not slowing down. We're building Ontario into, quote, the engine of North America's auto future. But obviously trying to be optimistic on a very dark day for hundreds of workers. Now we're hearing 700 auto workers being impacted on that third shift that will now be cut.
Okay, CTV's Kamil Karamali reporting for us from our CTV National Newsroom. Thank you for this,
You're
Kamil.
welcome, Renee.